everyone. I'm Elena Armijo, and I'm the founder of the C-Suite Collective. This is a company I created for executive leadership coaching and wellness that supports C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, and founders. Now, more than ever, businesses are running faster and with fewer resources. Burnout, overwhelm, disconnection, and disillusionment are the new norm for teams struggling with an old paradigm. At the C-Suite Collective, we believe deeply that providing massive support for your teams through executive coaching and holistic practices will create an inclusive culture, higher levels of performance, sustainable change, and the organizational impact you desire. You can find us at the c-suitecollective.com. Where should I start if I want to pivot careers? We'll look at that in our coaching tip for the week. And in our interview segment, we have Ilene Squires LaCourt, a beautiful photographer and badass accountant. We hope you enjoy the episode today. And remember, something powerful resides within you. I'm here to support you in seeing it and creating it. Where should I start if I want to pivot careers? I'm often asked this question by people who come to me and they are considering working with me as a coach. And one of the first things that they ask is, I want to pivot and I don't know how. Can you support me with that? So I'd like to take a look today around where would you start? The first thing I would have you look at is what's the reason that you want to pivot? Are you bored? Or are you frustrated with your team or your boss that's currently happening right now? Or are you genuinely interested in rebuilding and redesigning the next 10 years of your life? I'm often reminded that the choices we make today will set the tone for the next 10 to 15 years. Sometimes that's a hard concept for me to think about, but when I look back about the choices I made even 7 years ago, I can see how I clearly chose the path that I've been on. So that's scary. I think it's important that you get support from somebody like a consultant or a recruiter or a coach that can help you decide and see what's next for you. A pivot can be life-changing and it can be very, very scary at the same time. So that's the first thing, is get to the why. Why do you want to pivot and what will it provide you? The second thing is, what are the skills that you already possess that could support this pivot? I would just sit down and list them out and look at them on paper. The third thing is who do you know that could actually support you in this pivot? So mentors, friends, anybody that could really give you insight into the new space that you're looking to occupy. Call them up, take them out for a cup of coffee or a drink, and sit down and have a conversation about why they love the job they're in and what are the pitfalls that they see. And then lastly, sit with it for a while. I think oftentimes when we're in crunch mode, like we need to make a decision right away, or we feel like bonuses are coming up at the end of the year, that's when people start to put pressure to do something about it right now, as opposed to really sitting with the idea or the thought of what is next. So take some time to sit with it. And the last thing is, give yourself a deadline. By when will you actually make a move? Whether that's giving your resignation or taking that interview or scheduling somebody to rewrite your resume. So choose powerfully when you'll actually make that move. Today, I have with me Ilene Squires LaCourt. She is a fire, passionate woman, a powerhouse, really is what I want to say, but I've been using that word a lot. So the things that I would use to describe her are adventure, play, joy, sass, and fire. Ilene, thank you so much for being here and being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so flattered that you find my careers of choice to be something other people that might be listening to this will identify with.
Oh, yeah. I think that everything you're up to, people are going to resonate with completely. So tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Ilene Squires LaCourt. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. After I finished college, I moved to New York and I lived there a while. I lived there 13 years. I'm totally dating myself now. And I married a New Yorker and I convinced him to come west. And so we came back to LA in 2016, and we have two small daughters who are almost 2 and 4.5. And so life is very full and a little chaotic under these times of the pandemic. And what I do for work is a lot of things, actually. I mean, I would describe myself as a multi-hyphenate, and that's like a fancy word for a hustler. I think I've been an entrepreneur since as far as I can remember. I mean, I was like slaying friendship bracelets in like third grade, and that's just part of who I am. But I own two small businesses. I am a photographer, which I have been doing about 10 years now. And I was trained at the International Center of Photography in New York. I shoot mostly nonprofits, small businesses, and people. My passion is people like Elena. I love small businesses that are owned by women, creative small businesses that are owned by women. That's like my pressure point. And I like working with kids because I was formerly a teacher. The other small business I run is called Squires Tax Preparation, and it's a tax preparation business. In the same vein, I work with the same population, creatives, mostly women who are afraid to talk about their money with someone that's not a woman. So they come to me, and I've been doing that for 15 years now. I became certified to do that in 2005. Yeah, so I run both of those businesses now, and I also do teach still in a very small capacity. I teach photography and digital media to middle and high school students in the inner city.
That's amazing. I mean, that's why you're called a multi-hyphenate. Right?
Yeah, basically.
That word is used a lot with you. Well, I want to go back to a second to your first profession, photography. That's how we met.
Yes.
And I remember I hired you because you were recommended to me specifically for what you said. I remember when the referral came through, they said, Ilene is the woman to go to because she's supporting other women growing their businesses. And I was a brand new coach when we did our first shoot together.
Oh,
yeah.
How many years ago was that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think it was like over 5 years ago when I was like, I need a good photographer. Who shall I find? And I just remember how safe you made me feel. Like you were so warm and so welcoming, and you had such great ideas. And I had this certain feel that I wanted and no idea how to describe it to a photographer. And just all the questions you asked made me feel really comfortable. And I'll tell you what, I still use those photos, even though they're over 5 years now. People love them. They speak to them and they see them and they're just like, this photo is beautiful. That's who you are. So tell me, who are some of your favorite people that you've, and not necessarily their names, but what types of clients really get you excited?
Well, I think that when you're starting any business, the first clients you're ever going to have are people in your inner circle, right? And so the women in my inner circle were all like me. They were all like 30-something entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs that were starting businesses. And this was before, like, I feel like when I moved to LA, everyone I met was a freelancer, and this is 2016, right? But I've been a freelancer for more than 10 years now. So I feel like, I've been in the game long before like social media determined like who you were going to meet and whatnot. So I think those freelance sisters are powerful people because like you, they do the upsell for you. They tell their friends, their clients, their coworkers about whatever service you're offering. And then those people are interested and they come to you. And then they're not even that interested in like the nitty gritty of what you do, but they've already trust that you're going to provide them with what they need. And that's sort of how I run both of my businesses. I think my husband's in sales, and he says like what they teach you in sales trainings is to just listen to your client. And I really try very hard to do that because I can tell you there's been a lot of times where I felt like I was purchasing a service in which whoever was servicing me wasn't listening to my needs. And so I try not to be that person.
Well, and that translates directly, it sounds like, into the tax business as well.
Oh, totally. I mean, before I moved here, my business was service some educators and small business owners in New York and a lot of actors, like people who are kind of like working off the grid, like maybe have not traditional like W-2 payments, they're like gig workers or whatever. And so, their situations can be complicated. Like they might have, like me, many jobs or many 1099s or many employers. They don't have bookkeeping. Like they're just a little disorganized because nobody tells you that to run like a successful business, you need to be good at whatever the service or product is, but then you also need to be good at the business stuff. And unless you can afford to hire a team of people that can do that work for you, you're doing it all yourself at the beginning. So you need to be a little bit good at both of those things. And so I try to empower, especially my female tax clients and my female photo clients, to like know a lot about their service, or in terms of taxes, like know a lot about their finances, because without like financial stability, you can't pursue whatever art you're working on or whatever your business is. And that for me is like first and foremost, you have to have like healthy financial habits to pursue whatever drives you. And so I learned that quickly as a photographer.
Yeah. Well, okay. So now we're in this weird time, right, of COVID, and you are in a profession where you had to like be with people in person. So I'm curious, like, what have you done to pivot during this time?
Definitely. I mean, it's a hard time. I think for someone like me, I'm very lucky. I'm blessed that I have a lot of skills that can be marketable in a time in which we're all stuck at home. So that's been like working to my favor, like 110%. But one thing I did when this first happened was that I kind of expanded my servicing for taxes, because I found that it was a time where people were scaling back in their actual work, but then maybe doing more reflecting about how to improve their businesses and being more strategic about their money and their investments, and just better organizing themselves so that that was like one thing they didn't have to worry about when this was over. And so I expanded my servicing, which means that beyond doing just taxes, I started doing like a lot of talks and collaborations with other sort of money professionals. And when I say money professionals, I have a partner who's a CPA. So I work with her a ton because she knows like a lot of the legal stuff I don't know,
Yeah.
but we collaborate a lot. And together we collaborated with like a money coach. We collaborated with a bookkeeper. We collaborated with a financial advisor, all women. And I think that presenting ourselves in this way was really powerful. We spoke to a lot of people, especially women who were either had like lost their jobs or were like working furloughed, like working abbreviated hours, but maybe thinking about starting a business. And we spoke to them, and like they came to us and hired us to like help them start their businesses. So that was one way I pivoted. The other thing I think, which is so hard for creatives to do, and it's especially hard for me because I have two small kids at home, is to take a sort of sabbatical from your creative work, or to think about doing a project. Like if I didn't have two kids at home, I'd probably do something more creative in my photography work and work on like a pandemic project. But honestly, there's no time for a pandemic project right now. My pandemic project is keeping two tiny humans alive.
You're humans, I know.
So I try to take the pressure off myself to like create and make money and whatever, and just sort of, and I know this sounds very West Coast, but have faith in the process and know that like I've worked very hard to establish these businesses over the years, a decade or more, and they're not going to go away. But even though I'm not doing a lot of work right now, that I have faith in the everyday, like that there's other things that are going to come to me. And so I've picked up more hours teaching other students, which is really empowering for me because I'm a people person. I like working with people. And I'm still talking about things I love. I love digital media. It's the future. And I love thinking about empowering other people. And that's sort of like a tagline in all businesses. Now that I'm thinking about it in this conversation, I love empowering people to feel like they can do something.
Oh man, I love it because I can hear the hustler mentality and the Harlem Edge girl.
Well, people don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about like financial things. That to me is like something I want to demystify for women. Like, why don't we talk about our salaries together? Like, I have a great example, a great story. I have a girlfriend who works in entertainment here in Los Angeles. One of my closest friends. We've been friends 20 years.
Yeah.
Not once did we ever talk about her financial health. I always assumed she made really great money. She works in entertainment. That's sort of the epicenter of Los Angeles. Casually in a conversation over the pandemic, she told me in her last negotiation for her job, this is someone who's my age, she wouldn't take less than 215, like 215 grand for her job. And I was like, wow, like I was really shocked because I'm like, I know people in entertainment make money, but I was like, I didn't know like what the dollar amount looked like.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, like that's a lot of money, and then it spiraled into a bunch of other things. But I think that, we should be talking about money more because it's not commonplace for women, especially women business owners, to be talking about like what their financials look like.
Well, and it's so hush hush, right? Because I mean, I think that there's still a stigma and shame around it, which is so funny because like, whose measuring stick are we using? If we all like are just honest about it, then we know where we're
Right.
at. And
also like, why don't you want to know, like, for example, I have a lot of photographer friends. Again, like there's this weird proprietary, like caring for your business where you don't talk about like your financials.
Right.
But I love talking about them because if someone's making more than me, I want to know how they're doing it, and and I think that that's just the bottom line. Like you've got to think about how to acquire business, sustain business. Like these are all things that are at the forefront of my mind. And like some things are tried and true and you'll just learn over time, but you want to get from point A to point B a little quicker. You got to put some people in your corner to like, help you. And also maybe have like what we're talking about, uncomfortable conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that are willing to just be authentic with you. It sounds like, yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
What are some of the, like, I call them in coaching limiting beliefs, but they're like stories or things that are like, another speaker called them gremlins on your shoulders. Like what are those stories that you're telling yourself that you had to give up this year? Because I've had different stories on my shoulder this year that I've had to like release. What are yours?
Oh, I call it like the 8th grade girl inside of me that's like constantly like, in the cafeteria talking about myself. One is that I can't make a living as a freelancer. And that's something that's like a conversation I have with myself like 5 times a year. It's definitely happening a lot more now with the pandemic because I have a lot more time to sit with my thoughts. That's one. And I've proved myself wrong on multiple occasions. It can happen. You have, yes. Okay. That's one belief. The other belief is that this is something I'm still working through, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, viewers will resonate with them, is that I can't be a working mom. I mean, I am a working mom, but it is really hard, and it is really hard to find balance. It does not exist. Like running a business is like having a child. Like it needs a lot of attention to be good at it. You've got to be like 110%. And like, that's hard when you have kids because they also need you 110% and you're not being compensated directly for that. It's like, these are all elective choices women make. So yeah, those two things are conversations that have been coming to the forefront a lot.
Well, and you have babies too. You have little ones at home, right? So I'm curious because you're still creating. That's why I called you up because I'm like, Ilene, you're so powerful. What are you doing to balance your world right now? Knowing there's no such thing as balance. I agree with you. Like there's only choices, but what are the choices you've been making to have both move forward? Like growing your beautiful babies and growing your business?
I think you have to create some routines. Like I played sports my entire life. I also like was in a lot of, I don't know what to call them, like affinity type groups. Like my parents just kept me busy. They did not want me at home. And that was like the best thing they could have ever done for me. But in playing sports, I learned that routines are what create success, like essentially. And so I try to create those for myself. I try very hard to create clear boundaries. It's hard. This is my office space. It's also my gym. There's also a closet with my husband's suit. Yeah. So welcome to the study. So it's a lot of things. I don't have that transitional time where I could like commute to like a sitter or school where I have 20 minutes to decompress for my day so I can get ready for my second act as mom. Like now I'm just like walking out the door and there they are waiting for me, and they're waiting as eagerly as everyone else in my day to be entertained and cultivated and watered. So I try to create those boundaries where like when I'm done working, I try to put my phone away. That is like first and foremost, like, cause the phone is such a distraction. I try not to put a lot of pressure on myself, which is also another 8th grade conversation over here telling me like, I'm not a good mom. So I try to, my older daughter does do homeschooling, but I try to spend like 1 hour of uninterrupted time together doing something that will help them thrive, whether that's cooking together. We have started gardening since this pandemic started, like working in the garden. we bought a fixer-upper at the end of last year. It was great timing. We have a lot of things to fix. And we do these all together. I also try to think about like their physical health, and I like take them places where they can get what they need outdoors. For myself, I try to wake every day an hour before everyone else, and I do like a moving meditation. I either jog, walk, hike, or ride a bike. Usually listen to podcasts during that time, so it's not exactly silent, but I do feel like that really fills my bucket and sets the tone for the day. So if I don't get that hour before the rest of the land rises, it's usually it's a harder day for me. So those routines have helped me feel a little more stable. The other thing is like, this is the hardest thing I think for especially new entrepreneurs to do, is to say no, have boundaries. You know, if it's not aligned with what you want for your business or what you want right now, then you just have to say no. And I made that mistake a lot even before this pandemic when it came to like getting paid. A lot of times I would say yes, even when it wasn't aligned with the values of my businesses, and it never led to what I wanted. So I think that's something I've learned. You gotta have boundaries, say no when it doesn't feel right.
Those are so good. Thanks for sharing all those tips. What's one thing that this pandemic has taught you that you didn't know about yourself before, if anything?
Geez. I think I'm much more resilient than I like give myself credit for. That like the bounce back's pretty good, you know, considering the circumstances. Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I think this was always very evident for me. It was that like working with my hands is really important to like my mental health, my overall happiness. And so creating opportunities to do that has really made me very happy. So like I mentioned before, like working in a garden, making things, like I feel like it gives me a lot of satisfaction to work with my hands, which, you know, nowadays we're just on a computer a lot of the time, and it's more than ever, you need to like get outdoors and do something for yourself.
Experience real life, nature.
Yes.
Not the computer. I love that. As we're on the computer. But here's what I really want to know. Let's see. Okay. So you're this fantastic creative artist. That's how I hold you with photography. I mean, I really do think it's an artistic quality. You have to be creative to be able to do these beautiful images that you do. And you are an entrepreneur. You have your hands in so many different businesses, which I love, because I'm kind of like, what else can I learn in the world? You know?
Yeah.
So through that lens of being an artist and a creator in the world and an entrepreneur, what do you hope to see on the other side of this? So, you know, what do you hope that your work is going to disrupt in the world?
I mean, I think it goes back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago about empowerment. Like I get a lot of gratification out of empowering people. Now, did I think by the age I'm at now, I was going to be a millionaire? Yes. And sometimes I'm still waiting for that moment, you know? And then there's times where I'm like, everything I have is what I need. And I am so blessed to have these things and to have this opportunity to work for myself and to make a living. You know, most businesses die after 3 to 5 years because people just don't have that grit. And I see that a lot now in my networking, that newish entrepreneurs are not ready for what it is. Like, you got to have a stomach for no. And I have that. Like, I know, you know, I understand that there's like a cycle, it's cyclical, it's seasonal, like there's ups and downs to every business, every relationship. And I'm here for it, you know, like I ride the waves. And even when it's really hard, because during this pandemic, I know all of us have had those doubts. I just try to remind myself that there's like a sunny day waiting, and it might not come tomorrow, but it's going to come. And it usually does. It always does. But you've got to have the resilience and patience and a little bit of grit.
That is your superpower, resilience and patience. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, and I didn't totally answer that question. Again, like my brain is like the emoji with the cracked, you know, that's how I feel all of the day. I hope on the other side of this that, you know, like I said, people feel empowered, both financially. I hope that the few clients I've had this year will feel that way too, with their photos, like the way you spoke about what you felt when you received your collection. Like, I hope that that's what the handful of clients I've worked with this year will feel about their work, and that it'll be enough to carry me through to the other side of this pandemic. And if not, I'm confident that, you know, that this time will translate to something new, like a new career. I also think like, I think I mentioned this before, like obviously this digital living is the future, right? Like this is what it is for all of us. It doesn't discriminate. Like if you want to run a business or be present or whatever, you have to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that in my work, working with like inner city youth, like that, I'm empowering them to learn that, like to use the tools they have to share their ideas, their voice. And, for some of them, I hope it will lead them down the path of like a creative career. Because if someone would have told me that at, I don't know, they're like 13 to 16, I think I would have become a creative much sooner. But I didn't have that voice in my life to tell me that you could make a living being a multi-hyphenate or a multipreneur.
Yeah. So I hear that you teach them and bring the voice to them that says that they can do this. It's possible. Even now,
Right.
Even in a pandemic, you're doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody, as much as I need like that burst of light in my day, like I'm happy to be that for someone else. Because I believe it's like cyclical, like what you give is what you get. As entrepreneurs, a lot of times we're looking for dollars, like, and that's important. I mentioned that more than once in this conversation, but I think what's bigger than that is about like this exchange of energy and the feeling you leave people with. I mean, when you introduced me at the beginning of this conversation, you didn't say anything about what you paid me. You talked mostly about like what you felt, what the product was. And that's generally what people are purchasing, is an experience. And I think as much as we can prepare people for this type of economy, because those experiences are going to live beyond this pandemic and even through this pandemic, as much as we can prepare youth and ourselves for that, I think the better off we'll all be.
Oh man, that's so good. And I love that because it's true. People don't buy products, they do, but they buy experiences and who they believe in. That's at least my experience with it. So
I used to make these rules of, and some of them really ring true. Like I used to say, my best kind of client in any business is someone I'd want to be friends with. Because in both types of work, in all the work I've ever done, it's extremely intimate. So like, if you don't like somebody or it's not a good fit, like it's going to be a really hard job. And nobody left their day job to have a really hard job, like you already did that. So that's what I tell myself all the time. I'm like, they don't need to be my best friend, but do they have other people in their circles that I want to touch and work with? Probably. Or no, like, I ask myself that question a lot when I get a new client, especially one that hasn't been referred to me. Like, right. So I don't know anything about them. Like, are they someone that is going to help me grow or stay stagnant? Like those are questions that are important to ask yourself when you're acquiring new business.
That's amazing. Any other advice you would have given the younger version of yourself?
I like wrote some of this down. I have so much advice. I think it's really important. Now this is like the financial person in me talking. And I think like money has like a cultural component, like whatever you grew up with thinking and feeling about money is usually what you become as an adult. So I grew up, my father's Jewish and he's like super tight on the pockets, and he's really frugal, but I learned so much about life, in his shadow. Yeah. And I subsequently married a banker who, that's all I need to say. So yeah, I think that money is really important, but I think that when you talk about time, like you can't get time back. So what I tell a lot of young people, I have a new like 25-year-old college student that's like watching my kids a couple times a week. She asked me for all this advice and I was like, you can't get this time back. I know it sucks. We're in a pandemic. Will at some point hopefully be over on the other side of this. And I said, but you can't get this time back. So maybe you don't have any money, but you have a ton of time. And that's a huge asset in your life. Like you need to do things now you're not going to do when you're my age with 2 kids at home and all these businesses and all, elderly parents and a mortgage. Like you can't do all those things. You can't just buy a ticket with your tax return and go to Europe. Like you could do that now. So I'm like, do the adventures now because when you're young, because you can't get that time back. But I think that what I learned from growing up with my father and then like marrying into a family that, is also very money conscious is that like preparing for the future is a little balance of like the now and the later. And so you don't want to overdo it on either end. You want to find what works for you. So you want to have the now and enjoy it, but you also want to set yourself up to be a little comfortable when you reach retirement, because no one wants to work for anyone else forever, but you may want to work for yourself forever. I don't know. That's
no, I definitely don't. I want to not be working at some point.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like, when I talk about money, it's a lot of it for me is just talking about freedom. Like, I like my time is monetized. And like, it took me 10 years to get to that point. It took me to have kids to get to that point where I was like, oh no, yeah, my time is worth more now because it's so expensive for me to be doing X or Y. So and then I think like, the other thing I had a mentor. That's another thing I didn't mention at all in this conversation, but that I would not be who I was without mentors. Like, mentorship is very important. And I think there's a farce in believing that a mentor has to be more seasoned than you. I think a mentor can be someone younger than you, but they might know more about the discipline you're wishing to learn about. So mentorship is vital. Like, get yourself a mentor or 2 or 3. And, it's like, that's the best thing you could do for yourself. But going back to what I would tell myself 20 years ago or whatever, is that one of my mentors told me, every 5 years, your values will change. She told me this when I was in college, and I was like, really? Like, it seems like, what feels so important to me right now. Yeah. Like, how can this not be important to me 20 years from now? And now fast forward, I'm like, oh, she was absolutely right. There's a baseline of values you have, but in terms of doing business, there's like these evergreen values. And then there's like the cultural values that are constantly shifting. So, what feels like an enormity today, like that test in psychology and Psych 101 is not going to be important when you're 40 years old.
Oh, that's so good.
No one's going to care. No one cares. To be really honest, no one cares about your grades. Like, I think this economy we're working in now is sort of a free for all. It's like, if you've got a marketing plan, and you're kind of cute, you present well, you're well spoken, maybe you've been a couple places, like, you can go pretty far. And I think that, the other thing I would say too, and this is something I'm not great at, I'm still learning, I'm still growing, is becoming an expert, like a niche expert. Mm-hmm. Because once you become an expert, you become very valuable.
Yeah, you can give advice. Yeah.
Right. So once I became very niche in like the work I was doing and just saying it aloud, those clients started coming to me. And at first it felt kind of like magic, but then I was like, this isn't magic. I'm just being like deliberate with what I want. And, like me saying like, I want to work with creative entrepreneurs, and then them coming isn't like happenstance. It's very strategic, and I think that these things should be taught in school, but they're not. Like, it's the school of life, the school of common sense.
That's so brilliant. Thanks for sharing all that. Super cool. Okay, last question. So if you had a megaphone and you had to make a big statement to the world leading them into next year, what would you say based on everything? You had so much goodness in this interview. So how would you narrow it down for one statement?
Oh gosh. I think that I was fortunate enough to grow up to be a college student in the early 2000s, to be a young professional in the early 2000s. I know what the benefits are of a democracy. If you care about the future of this country, like, you've got to exercise your right, and not beyond that. Like, we're beyond just going to the polls at this point, where it's like, you need to talk to your friends, you need to talk to your friends' friends, you need to talk to your family members. There's a bigger conversation that needs to go on about our freedom. I worry a lot about the future. And I'm faithful that we will be okay. But I know what the good life was. Like, I lived through it, and I just want that for my kids,
Well, yeah, and that's the beautiful piece. We've been there, so we can go there again, and we can build something completely different as well, if we all get it together. Get it together.
You got to be. I say I'm faithful in either circumstance, but if you ask me what's at the forefront of my mind every day when I wake up, that is it.
Oh my gosh. Ilene, thank you so much. You are a firecracker, and I love you. I've always loved your sass. I love your mindset. I love who you are for women. And I'm just so honored that you would be here. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much, Elena. I'm so honored to be on the show, and I hope I've spoken to somebody that's out there listening.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
In a Manner of Speaking is an original podcast hosted by me, Elena Armijo, and produced by the following amazing team. Sam DeSanto in creative direction, Meg McCarley, brand designer and social media, Rye Taylor, podcast design strategist and producer, Rajan No, business writer, John Beethan, president Imagine Podcasting, and music by J. Aaron Boykin. Thank you so much for joining us. If this conversation sparks something for you, let it move through your week. Take it with you, take on one small action to move the ball forward. And if you want to join our community of leaders who are daring to lead with courage and heart, you can find that at www.elenaarmijo.com or www.thec-suitecollective.com. I reserve a small number of complimentary 20-minute sessions for leaders who want clarity on what they need and insight into what is getting in the way. The practical next steps that create real movement and results in your leadership journey. So you can schedule a call through the link below. It's in the description. Like, subscribe. Thank you for listening, for showing up, and for doing the work of being human together.